Hey guys, back with the latest. As some of y'all know, I've got the ADHD pretty strong, even medicated, and I tend to jump from hobby to hobby and project to project with what my wife refers to as squirrel brain. So I'm gonna bring you the latest, which this week is mowers. This all started with this regular rotary Ryobi mower that my in-laws let us use because the drive motor on it died. And so while the blade would run, it was no longer self-propelled, a little hard to push, and that worked fine for a while. But as I was wanting a better cut, I started looking into reel mowers, and that led me way down the rabbit hole that I am just still starting to enter. Next step along the way is jumping on Facebook Marketplace, and I found this Fiskars right here, which is a reel mower. Push mower will actually cut the grass rather than hack it off like a rotary mower does. It works a little better than a lot of the older rotary mowers because it actually has a chain drive with some gears here. And so for every bit that the wheels turn, you get more rotation on the reel itself out of that. Now, before we get too much further, the way a reel mower works is essentially more like a scissors than the spinning blade underneath a mower. This here is called the bed knife, and this here is part of the reel. So this is sharp and then this is sharp, not totally of itself, but against each other they are. And as this travels, the grass in here gets pulled in and cut with a scissor action rather than just hacked off by, a knife without something to push against. So when it goes this way, it will cut the grass in between. And then you can sharpen this by using valve lapping compound. It's kind of like a sandy paste, and you run the reel this way and it rubs inside of here and flattens them off to each other. And then you can adjust the bed knife to reel to get them nice and close to where you can cut pieces of paper in between here, and that's how you tell when they're sharp. Now, one of anything's not enough. The guy that I bought that Fiskars from also had this Yardforce, and that is another reel mower. Works the same way, but this one's battery powered. Got a little battery with it. It lasts for a very short time before the battery dies, but it is nice to have the battery to spin it around. And that means you can use your energy for just pushing the thing across the lawn and not for actually powering the reel. I'd been checking from some of the really nice companies like McLean, John Deere, California Trimmer that make the big nice gas powered ones. And that's what I really wanted, but they take a lot of maintenance and there's a little bit of a learning curve. So I was gonna get some of these manuals first and just kind of try them out. And what was nice is that those two that I just showed you, I got them for 50 bucks a piece from the same dude who said they didn't work well anymore. I took them home. It turns out they just needed sharpened and they both work fantastic. But then I ran across this brand new, unused, although from the 1980s, McLean manual reel mower. It works just like that Fiskars, but a lot more heavy duty. And this thing is cool. It's got 7 blades instead of 5. It's just a solidly heavy duty machine. Cuts nice, tolerances are great, and it's already got a grass catcher on it, which is really awesome. Now I know some of the lawn guys are gonna say, you gotta leave your grass clippings in the lawn because it'll pass nitrogen onto your grass. And that's true, but if you do pick up the lawn clippings, you avoid some of that thatch and you can still put the nitrogen back into your lawn with fertilizer or what you want instead of letting the clippings go back and do it for you. Plus fertilizer doesn't have any weeds in it. Amazon time. Let's see what the Bezos brought us today. We got washers and washers. My roller. I'm going to explain what this is in just a minute because this might take a second to lots of tape. Not to worry, I have just the tool. People far and wide knew him for his Dremel work. You will see that bad boy back here again, I promise you. Now this is a roller for a conveyor belt. You see it's got the little, there we go, spring-loaded ends. One solid, this end will push on over. I'll show you just what that's for in a minute. You see, as great as reel mowers are for cutting grass, there's still a problem. A lot of guys like to use these specifically when they want to mow their grass really low, and they're great for that, but they come with front wheels just like so. And those front wheels, if there's anything that passes in between them, it will not keep the blade from running that over. So there's an issue that we can solve pretty easily because we know what's used on a lot of the big units, which is a roller instead of wheels. See, we take this roller, run it right direct across here. If we've got a ridge running this way and we've got wheels on either side of the crest of the ridge, we're not scalping the whole middle of it because it'll just ride right flat dead in the center right here. First thing we got to do to put that on, we're going to take the wheels off with this here. We can fit these tabs into these outside pieces, and that roller sit right up to here. We just got to get rid of these guys right here because they're in the way. And there we go. No more sharp edges or anything to cut ourselves on. And about ready for a roller. But now that I think about it, I've got bare metal down here, which probably shouldn't leave that way because, you know, rust and stuff. So what we're gonna do is pull some stuff apart to do stuff to it that's good so that rust doesn't happen when there's, we'll just skip a part to the place where I already have the handle removed. We'll finish taking, looks like we gotta take this whole thing off to get this bit out of here. All right, we'll save these in no particular order. There's our little thingamabob. Cool. For some of those of you who are familiar through the YouTubes of some of the mods available for this mower, you already know some of the things that I'm going to be doing. So I'm just replicating stuff that's already out there, although some of what's out there is just pictures. So I'm going to be doing it on video, and maybe you can learn from some of my mistakes instead of having to repeat them yet again for a third time. We'll see if we can make something out of it without making too big a mess. I got it flipped around for this next part because I want you to be able to see where the chain goes here, where the sprocket is at. That's where you attach to backlap it, which is where you run the cylinder backwards with the compound. That'd be this stuff right here. There's 80 grit and 120 grit. This stuff here, this is the 120 grit. I've got the other one over there. Where you attach to it, if you pop the master link off, you can put a 32 mil socket right over the top of that sprocket and run it backwards with a 1/2 inch impact drill. The only bad thing about using the socket is you can wear out the teeth on the top of the sprocket here. Not saying it's a bad way to do it, just that'd be a concern I'd have. It comes with a little tiny Allen bolt in here, and I drilled it out and put a bigger bolt right there because that actually spun once on me. So now it won't again. What I do is I take this bolt off, and then I took a whole socket right here and I drilled a hole in it and I tapped it. So now I can take this bolt and run it through and screw it in like this, and then that's on that shaft. You don't have to go all the way through the shaft even. You can just run it this way and thread it into the little divot in the shaft. Again, 1/2 inch impact, and then run it just like this, spin it backwards. And that's a whole lot better than the method that they recommend, which is using this guy. This is what comes from their factory. And that you attach into it the same way, and you sit and you crank it and you crank it and you crank it till you feel like your arm's gonna fall off. So this method, not great. 1/2 inch drill with something like this. No need to go and spend $65 or whatever it is for the tool pieces online. You can get the socket for $1 or whatever at Harbor Freight and a leftover bolt in your bin, and then you've got a tool that'll do a good job. And now comes my favorite part of every project, the science. See, my McLean came with a nice grass catcher here, but the Fiskars doesn't have one, so we're gonna make one out of this bucket right here. See, we got our mower for like 50 bucks, and the grass catcher that doesn't even come stock with it, you gotta buy it separate, is like 165. So what we've got here is a storage box, Room Essentials, from Minneapolis, Minnesota, made by, I think this is Target. I don't know. It was a spare one I had in the garage. So first of all, when we modify this, we're gonna have to change the shape and the dimensions, and then make it mount. So the first thing we need to know is what we can and can't use to do that job. Specifically, glues, because plastic is notoriously hard to glue, and it's especially made more complicated because there's more than one type of plastic. That's the very first thing we need to know before anything else, is what kind of plastic this is. So there's a bunch of tests we can do, and there's a lot of different types of plastic. There's polyethylene, there's let's see, HDPE, it's a high density polystyrene. There's polypropylene, which is, my guess is going to be polystyrene or polypropylene because of the, you know, it's semi-rigid, semi-flexible. It's definitely not PVC because that's a floppy, clear plastic. There's polystyrene, polyamide, and all of these have different characteristics and things that you can do to test them and see which one is which. It's definitely not a polycarbonate because that would be, you know, like your eyeglass lens, or here I've got a lens I was using on the camera earlier to knock down the brightness of the sunlight. That's probably a polycarbonate there because it's higher density, but it would probably crack if it was in something like this. So being that this is more than likely either polyestyrene or polypropylene, the main test that we would do to differentiate those from the others is a float test, but we'll still do it anyways, just to see. There. Got a chunk. Now, if you're worried about this getting close to my fingers, this was actually initially invented by doctors for, or so I'm told, for the purpose of cutting off casts. So this blade that's moving around at the end, you can cut just about anything with it except for people. So it's a very safe tool. The float test is pretty true to its name. We got a piece of plastic here and we got a bucket of water. We're gonna drop the thing in. Sure enough, it floats. So it is either polyestyrene or polypropylene, because if it was anything else, it would sink. Now, the next step, we said is a burn test. This is interesting because there's actually a couple of kinds of plastics that won't burn. That's mainly PVC and PA. But if it's PE or PP or PS, it'll burn, where PS has like a dark black smoke and PP or will have a blue flame at the bottom and a yellow flame for the rest of it. Has a really, PP has a nice smell like a candle, whereas PE is going to have a blue flame at the bottom, but it'll have like a kind of a burning wax, but more like a plastic bag burning, whereas the polypropylene smells good, and then PS has like a black smoke that comes off of it, and you know, it's a lot of carbon. So PET has black smoke as well, but that has a sour, bad smell. So we're gonna burn this. Only thing is, my sneaking suspicion is that this is polypropylene, that it's PP, and if it's polypropylene, it will keep burning. It will continue to burn. It's the polar opposite of PVC, and which just won't light at all, or some which will melt or burn. So if this is polypropylene, it'll keep burning. So we're gonna smell for a nice candle smell here. Yellow flame, blue base, continues to burn. I didn't realize I had stepped out of the shot there for the last one, but you see how it's still burning. And all in all, I mean, it smells like a candle. Pretty decent, pretty nice. I'm gonna be careful with the drips there, but all right, now we gotta put it out. There we go. All right, so that's 100% polypropylene. And now that we've tested it that way, there's one final test to be able to tell for sure what kind of plastic this is. If you want to get really in-depth, really scientific with it, there's one final test we can do. That's to get up underneath it. You take a look right in. I'm gonna move it around so we can see it. Little 5 in a triangle, and it says PP underneath it. That PP stands for polypropylene, as does the 5, because there's different classes of plastics. Each one gets a number. 5 is polypropylene, and that means that we have to use certain glues. So the basic principle of what we're doing is we're gonna have some things that stick in here and then hold to a plate like this, that are gonna hold our grass catcher in place. And the way we're doing that is we got some straight-ended metal rods from the Home Depot, and I'll show you what I'm doing to bend them. See, there's no use for one of those fancy metal benders when you've got one of these real handy bench vices right here. You can just do a little past and right to. Looks to be about 90 degrees. They say it looks good from my house. We'll go back in there again, a little more. There we go, in, and a little past. There, she's bent. There's another end. Now, I got 2 of these, and I'm planning, just by eyeball, to go out about, say, 20 inches, and that'll be about good. And then I did measure the sides of my tote, and that's, or the width of it, and that's right at 17 inches, which is perfect, because I have a 17-inch reel, so I mean, that couldn't have worked out more perfectly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna divide that 17 inches in half. We get 8.5, so we'll get 8.5 from each. If we go out to 20 inches, bend it, and then from there, cut it 8.5. Join the 2 ends together. I think in theory that would work. So we got our marks, you know the precision, because we got Milwaukee tape measure and permanent marker. So we're gonna be somewhere in the ballpark where we need to be. Now, what I really would have liked is if I could have gotten these in long enough pieces and short enough notice that I could have just done 1 to here, bend it, 17 inches, bend it, 20 inches, bend it, and then bend the curly cues in the end. So it could add 1 piece, but yeah, this is all right, it'll do. The first one took too long. The power tool was invented for a reason. Yep. Yeah, I know, it's because I'm welding. Yeah, sure. Now, in case you didn't get the idea, I am not a welder by trade, and I don't want anyone to get the notion that I think I am. I just like to stick metal stuff to other metal stuff, for which reason I have a welder, and sometimes I make stuff with it. There's the button. I'm gonna wait to touch that for a while, because that's hot. There we go. It ain't pretty, but it's prettier than it was. Now, we're doing a mix of our own math and some that has to do with the Fiskars original dimensions. So this is going to be a little bit shorter. It's going to be about 20 inches. And up here, we are going to be filling out about 17 inches of that with our 17, yeah, with our bucket. And then I tried to do a little trigonometry. Whoop. Come on now. Get this angle right so that it comes forward at the bottom. But it doesn't have to come all the way down here because the front is going to be shallow, more so than the back. Where the back, we're not going to have to take much or any off. So that bottom is going to come up at an angle. And I also cut out the little tabs inside here so that our bracket that we built can fit inside of this channel. Now, the Fiskars site does not list the length on this. So our guess here is just that, 17 inches, 20 inches, that's a ballpark. But we've got centimeters for this, which I'm not measuring nothing in centimeters. I think it's 31 point something, which is somewhere around 13 inches. And you know what, we're already about right there. And then it is 40 centimeters across the bottom, which is going to be somewhere around 16 inches. And then we have a dimension for the end too, which came out somewhere around 7, and I already marked that off, 7-ish. So we would need, let me adjust my tape measure, something like a little shorter than what it is. So actually, I did my math backwards on where that cut went. That's actually supposed to go the other way, which is fine because we can just take more off. No better way to spend a weekend morning than cutting apart plastic boxes. I've scribed some nice little lines in here, and then we already have kind of a line that's, you know, pre-instated at the bottom there, where the base metal's kind of matte, or base plastic's kind of a matte texture. So we'll just cut along that too. And then we'll figure out exact angle placement over here once we actually have the bracket fitted up. So let's start by just cutting this to our general shape. There you have it. We can just bend this guy up. As a matter of fact, that might give us our first dimension. I'm going to measure that in a minute and see about where that comes to. But all these leftover plastic scraps, don't get rid of these too far. Toss those away because there's a use for those, which I will bring up shortly. Anytime we're working with polypropylene, we're going to need our scraps. We've got our paint booth set up here. Got these things with some paint on them to the appropriate colors and a little bit of clear coat. Now, orange is great for Husqvarna tools. I love Husqvarna, but these are going to be battery powered, and I like all my Husqvarna stuff, they're gas stuff, but for anything DC, I have a tendency to use Milwaukee. You see where I'm going with that. Example of how I got some of my Milwaukee set up. I love Milwaukee tools, and I don't have what I would like to have, but I've got the beginnings of it. Of course, that doesn't take into account that most of my tools I use the most are out for the job right now that I'm doing. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to melt this plastic together. And I keep an extra just crappy soldering iron. I don't like this style, but I keep one on hand for this type of thing, and slap one of these on the desk. It'll hold it real nice. And then I've got my nice soldering iron over there in the corner that I can control temperatures with precisely for when I'm doing, you know, actual soldering. I guess while I'm waiting for the soldering iron to heat up, I might as well show you this little Hakko unit. Out of the dozen or so soldering irons I've ever had, there's not one that is nearly as awesome as that thing is. I would highly recommend it to anybody looking for a new one. I also need to clean up my grind job from last night because it's a mess in here. There, that's a little better. We'll get the rest later. Now, since just about no glues bind with polypropylene, I mean, hot glue will strip right off, super glue, pretty much anything, even a lot of the plastic glues don't work well with it. So what works best is plastic welding, which is where we take the actual polypropylene itself and we use this hot glue gun. We'll find some high spots that are join together the best, and we'll weld those together using its own material, and then we'll fill it in using our scraps, and that's why we want to keep those handy. So let's do this little spot here and do, I guess, kind of the closest thing to a tack weld. We'll just kind of melt and drag to fill the space in between and connect it together with its own material. There. So we're going to let that little section just kind of dry, and that'll hold the rest of this over. And then we can make the rest of it a little bit prettier looking than that. That'll just be our one big section that holds it over. Now this material is super thin. So if you had a thicker box, it wouldn't blow through quite as easily. But this one's going to be a little tricky, and that's all right. It just won't look real pretty. I'm not going to have nice, you know, TIG welded stacked dimes with pretty rainbow colors like an Instagram welder. It'll be more of a plastic sludge across the bottom edge, but it'll hold and it'll work, and I won't spend $165 on it. So I've taken a couple of weeks off from filming because, you know, short attention span and I get bored easily. So I've just been working on it on and off throughout the last couple of weeks, and the progress that I've made. The back wheels are now a roller. A lot of people have done the mods on this one online, and what they usually just do is just stack additional wheels in there, which I started off with doing. But then there was still stripes from each wheel on the lawn, so I wrapped it in a piece of rubber. It's more like a kind of neoprene. And then I've got my bucket on, and I'll show you a little closer for the grass catcher, what that's all looking like right now. I've got my handle painted black, and then I've got this marked off because I'm going to be adding some electronics here, because this is going to turn into a battery powered unit pretty close here. So our basket for the grass catcher, this ended up working out really well. We got, these had to end up getting bent the other way from how they originally were. But I've got the plastic melted together underneath, and the way that I did that was to just take and melt more plastic right over the top of it. The roller ended up being kind of fun because it didn't quite run all the way from one side to the other. So I welded a nut right here so it could stick into that, and then it did kind of barely pop through here. So what I ended up doing is just welding it, you know, welding the nut here, and then I just welded the end shut, welded it right to there, so it can't pop off, which is fun because if you want to take it off to service it or something like that, you can't. But that's all right, because it also won't come off while you're mowing the lawn. Of course, the original stickers, they didn't stay on, so we had to replace those, but we can still tell how far we're mowing the grass. And then I've got this metal bracket that I built, and that goes right over the top of everything. That's gonna be the platform for our new motor and batteries that are gonna run on top of there. So that's current progress. And then this is that Yardforce that you saw at first, which that was orange. Now it's red too, because if it's battery powered, I like red tools, primarily Hilti and then Milwaukee up next. But neither one of them make a real mower, so, you know, we had to just do what we can with what we have. Initially, I was gonna mount that inside of the top cover that went over here, but it wouldn't all fit in there, so it's just mounted to the top, and you just snap your battery in, and then we've got this custom cover here to cover up our proprietary wiring harness that was created. So this is, you know, it's a very professional job. Then, of course, since we're not running stuff off the wheels like we were before, we chopped off those axle shafts, and then we've got rollers under the front and rear of this, and that, I mean, it's amazing. It works awesome. So we're just about done with this one, I think, and then I'll bring you back some progress on this as I, you know, keep going with it. All right, so now I can adjust both my speed on this. I've got on, off, and then I've also got reverse, which means instead of cranking it down here to backlap it, I can just run the reel in reverse by flipping the switch the opposite direction. So, and then this way just to run it when I'm mowing the lawn. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty much all of our parts are here in the mail now, but we've hit another snag, which is that when I line the sprockets up, I just use this little laser level here, and what I'm seeing is that when we get these about lined up so that the chain doesn't jump off, this bracket that we put on is off of the spot where we need to put our bolts. So we're gonna have to extend that a little bit. So I ground off the top, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna weld another plate just right flat square to the top of it, because that's going to give us a little bit more depth to be able to tap it, to be able to have something to thread into, and that'll be just fine. That weld is really cold, and I just ground it off, and I'm quite sure that piece would just snap off, except I'm putting bolts through it anyways, and once I tap it, it'll stay in place. So we're gonna paint it, so when I go to work, it'll be dry when I come home, then I can clear it, and we'll maybe put a motor on tonight. Looking for a couple other things I can do in the meantime, so I'm running these wires down here and just leaving them hanging loose. We got DC output on the bottom. What's cool about that is there's no positive or negative per se, you just send it. And then up here we got our positive and negative, which we'll run to the other side and stick them to the batteries. It's a nice little tool for giving your drill bit somewhere to go so that it doesn't walk around on you. Let's see, we got a number 30. When I was putting the mower back together, I ended up running across this piece that I'm not entirely sure is from the mower, but if any of y'all own the same one and know what this is, everything seems to be working all right so far, so I don't know. Tell me if you know what it is. I guess we keep going with the wiring because we only painted this little section here. So we got our little Hakko soldering iron here, and a couple of my favorite little tools are for holding wires in place. And what we're going to do is we got these on the Amazons, and we're going to screw them on right here. Pre-drilled those holes, but we got self-tapping screws to pop in there. And then we are going to wire these in series to be able to take two 18-volt batteries, put that together into 36 volts that will go to our motor. So with that, I will show you how we're going to do it once we get these installed in place. Broke off the first screw, just like we planned to, of course. Broke off the second. Maybe we should, I don't know, change plans. Broke off bolt number 3. Cool, cool. Maybe if I don't run it down so hard, we'll just stop right there. Cool. That's good on that one. What am I going to do about these? This has dragged on for way, way too long. And I have a new project I'm starting tomorrow. So I need to get this done, like tonight, so that I've got this space free and clear to start my next project tomorrow. Did I put that too far out? Am I going to have to grind that off? No, my laser's just crooked. This laser was a stupid idea. Whose idea was that anyways? All right, I'm right about there, looks good. Good enough for government work. All right, no need for specialty oils and all that. We got a little bit of CLP here from the rifle range. That'll do us just fine. Oh, there's my tap. We're gonna put some threads in here and try and make her a little more secure anyway. We'll see what we can do with her. And here's where we're going to find out just how far off those holes are drilled from where they're supposed to be. They don't exactly look lined up, but you know, maybe if we're lucky they'll be close. Who knows? Well, can't even screw them in from there. Just look at that, those are too long. Going from the top. And the flange doesn't fit from underneath. Might have to get creative. What I'm thinking this calls for is taking these to the grinder and shortening them up by about a quarter to a half inch or so. Let's give that a shot. All right, well, the grinder was taking too long, so we moved over to the bench vise, and now my long bolts are short bolts. Give me trouble or not. I mean, we know they are. You've watched this project progress, I tell you. This point, come on. Why won't you start? Well, if you cut bolts off, you gotta do it straight. Not like how I did it. But it'll go in eventually. We just have to sing the patience song or close all the doors so we don't wake up the kids before we yell at it. But if I'm gonna yell at my mower, I'll turn off the camera first. I'll probably be fast forwarding through this anyway. You know what, we're gonna try a different bolt. That bolt is not our friend. Did this hole change sizes? Like, are these screws not the same size they were last week? I tested this. Like, I checked it and everything. Well, that one's the right size. The video is just gonna be an hour of me trying to get these bolts into this motor. Which, if you worked on stuff long enough, you know is actually how these projects go. Ha! We may have succeeded. And indeed we did. Well, the fact that it's pivoting means it's attached to the plate. And that's a good thing. So that motor is nowhere near square, but we're 2 broken drill bits and 1 bloodied finger into it, which means it's time to move on. So what we're gonna do is move on to wiring these battery connectors together. I'm just seeing about how long we want them, which is right about here. And take some sheathing off the ends. Maybe a little more than that. Yeah, that's about better. And we're gonna take 2 18-volt batteries. We're gonna get 36 volts by running them together into a 40-volt motor. What we'll do is get our heat shrink on here and ready to protect it. And then solder into this joint. And one of my favorite little doodads for soldering are these little guys. Hold everything in place while you're running the liquid metal where you want it to go. Looks like we only need one. We'll draw some solder through here, right like so. Mind you, the amount of caffeine I've had this evening is not commensurate to the makeup for how early I got up this morning, so forgive me for being a touch shaky, but it's not rocket surgery. Wires just got a touch. Good enough for government work. It'll hold. Hopefully get this over. Come on now. Work with me, baby. Over the top. Nice and easy. Come on. There we go. Kind of ease her in there nice and gentle like. Once you're good and over the top, a little bit of into the fire and flames. Get her to shrink on up. There you go. You got a nice factory seal on it. So we got black to black and red to red. Play the color matching game. Been doing this since I was a kid. This is the red one. Come on, you. I know if I pull it any harder, I'm gonna end up with a piece of metal in my skin. Again, moving on. Actually, let's try this guy. Voila! Success. They say success is the ability to move from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. I identify with that remark. There we go. Nice and easy. Heat shrink. Yeah. You know what? Red's going on this end. There we go. Let's do her up. All right, a couple more burns and I've got this side up. Batteries are wired in. So now we've got the motor. What's fun about this is, like I said on the other side, DC motors, you can wire either to either, but you know, just for the fun of it, we'll continue to play the matching game. So, got our wire strippers. If there's one thing I figured on the other side, it's that if I could make things easier for myself, it would be by using a little bit bigger heat shrink. So, grab a larger size. There. Let's do that. Let's see, we'll start with the red because it's more colorful. That means it's more fun. So we'll get this all wired up. A little bit of that sticky goodness in there. Oh, breathe in the happiness. Smells like power. Not how you're supposed to solder, by the way. You're supposed to put the solder on top and the heat on the opposite side so that the solder gets drawn through the wire. But ain't nobody got time for that. Just drip it on, full send. See, why is it when I use the bigger one on this side, it doesn't shrink up enough? It's like the project deities have decided that this mower is some kind of abomination that must be stopped. Will that make me give up? Well, of course not. It will merely firm my resolve to make this happen precisely when and how I intended it to. Just like that. Let's try that again. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. There we go. That's the one. Just like that. I hope you're paying attention, kids, because these tricks will come in handy as the world is ending, which is probably not far. Enjoy it now because you're all gonna die in a trench in Europe. There we go. All right, where's my heat shrink? Well, it done fell off, which means we're gonna use electrical tape, which is not good for anything. So don't do as I do. Don't even buy the stuff. I don't buy the stuff. I don't really know where electrical tape actually comes from. It just shows up in my garage, roll after roll, somehow, and then gets used when I make poor decisions, which is from time to time. Now appears to be one of those times. All right, what are we gonna zip tie this to? How about there? It seems like a good place as any. Get out the bag, come on. There we go, right here. And that about does it. Oh, you know what? We're still missing one very important element that we can't be forgetting. We'll come back to that in just a second. Because no project is finished without ample branding and or decoration. You know what, before we got there, we actually need to do something kind of crucial first, and that's, we don't have a chain. We had a different chain. That chain was nasty looking. This is sharp. You know, Milwaukee looking mower. Best color scheme ever too, red and gold. So we got to go with a gold chain. And if I can get it out of the box, we're going to get this set up real nice and fancy like. Fresh new chain, fresh new outlook on life. Look at that, we got master links and all. Yeah, it seems like it's gonna be about right. Cool, right about there or so. Gonna kind of dent it, mark it, so I don't forget which one I'm pressing out. That's good enough for government work. And then pull my little chain breaker unit here. Look at that, destructions and everything. Still got the whole thing here. Forgive me for skipping around a little bit here, but there's something about the process of installing a chain that will make a man say things that are just downright unchristian. So I turned the camera off for a bit, and now we've got installed motorcycle chain, although with a bit of floppiness to it. So we've got this this here tensioner, and there's multiple ways we could do this. I'm not sure which of them we are going to enact, but one of them will be happening, and I'll let you know what I come up with in a brief minute here. Well, I'm officially giving up on this tensioner. We got some slop in the chain, but when I ordered that thing, I thought it was like gonna be this big, and it's not. It's huge. So that kind of surprised me. As we have hooked that up, we've got all of our electronics. I just slapped our batteries in there, and now we're going for the moment of truth. So we'll turn our switch on, give her power. Nothing. I got a light though. Let's try the other way. I hear it. It wants to do something. There we go. Needed a kickstart. Oh, why is this happening? Oh, because I got something weird going on with this battery. It's probably because the batteries are different size, to be honest. We'll try two batteries that are the same size, see if that works better. Well, the one battery had more charge than the other, but we'll put the bigger one later. Might have to give her a little extra stuff in there. There's a problem that we're having here. I'm not sure where it's at because this battery keeps kicking off no matter what I do. Yeah, see, there it goes. As soon as I turn this on, that battery turns off. And I change this battery. That's not hot. I smell something burning, and I'm not welding, so it's not me. Yep, see, there it goes. I just turned it on, battery turns off. Let's try the other direction. On, battery off. And that's not working right. I just touched that motor, and that's about 400 degrees. Not sure why that is. I don't think it's supposed to be. It's like they say when you're welding, if it sounds like bacon, then your temperature is probably set right. If you smell bacon, then you're on fire. All right, well, there. Now it's got lights and a bumper sticker, so it doesn't really matter if it runs or not. It's finished because I'm over it. There you go. We got the Milwaukee battery mower number 1, which works real well, and Milwaukee battery mower number 2, which works maybe not quite as well, but yeah, it's getting there. Thanks for joining me.